Hi, my name is Shira Rubinoff. I'm here with Eric Klonowski. We're here at the RSA 2020 conference. So Eric, please introduce yourself to our audience. Tell them who you are and what you do for Webroot.
So my name is Eric Klonowski. I lead a reverse engineering team and research and development group at Webroot. I've been with Webroot for 5 years. We've come up with some fantastic projects, totally focused on trying to better detect malware, engineering heuristics, and trying to observe the behavioral aspects of malware and trying to basically zero in on what is bad. So
interesting.
Yeah.
So let's jump right in. We talk about cyber resilience. And at the end of the day, typically does the same thing that everyone thinks it does. But pretty much every organization you go to has a different way to define cyber resilience. How would you define that?
Yeah, so cyber resilience is really the ability to absorb the punches, right?
Yeah.
So you have a lot of adversaries out there throwing attacks, RDP brute forcing your network, or deploying malware on your network if somehow they're able to get a foothold. And resilience is the ability to get back up and going, right? So either stop the attack altogether, or if impacted by an attack, recover your data, get the business back up and running.
And in terms of Webroot, how does Webroot handle cyber resilience?
So the Webroot Carbonite combination
Yeah.
is, built specifically for this, right?
Okay.
So Webroot is a world-class AV, does a fantastic job at stopping ransomware, and blocking attackers from even getting a foothold on your system. But in the event that any sort of attacker is able to, grab admin creds or whatever, and is able to deploy ransomware throughout your network, Carbonite offers a backup solution that allows you to restore data such that any impacted environment can be reversed right back to the original state.
So you'd say that it wouldn't be held ransom by ransomware.
I would say.
Excellent. So why is the mindset of cyber resiliency very important now when it comes to ransomware?
Yeah, so ransomware is, of course, perhaps the one of the most devastating threats that we've seen lately. It's highly impactful, can bring the organization to its knees, and that's really what attackers are after, right? Because this is how they get the money out of you. Historically, 10, 20 years ago, attackers sit resident on your system and they try to observe passwords as they flow through the network, and this really isn't the case anymore. They want to be loud, destructive, and this really brings the organization down, leaves cash registers unusable, you're unable to transmit data, employees unable to work. They really want to force payment. Sure. So the ability to respond to these sort of attacks and keep the environment live is very important.
Sure.
This is where resilience plays a huge role, right? We need to be able to either absorb the ransomware attack or revert back to a norm. So.
Well, there's the mindset also of, let's have backups and let's do many backups, off-site backups, and that should protect us from ransomware attacks because then we could just be up and running. What do you say to that point?
So this is kind of tricky, right?
Yeah.
Ransomware attackers are becoming craftier and craftier by the year. We've actually seen, as I'll discuss here in a bit, with the Revel organization, attackers are highly skilled. The traditional ransomware model is to just sort of blast it out there and, spam as much as you can and, affect mom and pop opening emails, right?
Exactly.
But this is no longer the case. Of course, they still want to tap into, that sort of money pool, right? But the real payout is, not in getting mom and pop to pay the $300, $500 ransom, but it's more about getting organizations to pay the $3-5 million ransom, right?
Of course.
And if they can get that payday, all the better for, what may be just a little bit more effort, right?
Sure.
So when attackers are able to, hop in your network, right, and sit resident on your machines, of course, when we're dealing with this sort of skilled attacker, they're going to be observing your backup solution, right? And if they're able to get the keys to the kingdom, then, this is something they might shut down or otherwise, remove altogether or alter the copies totally under your nose without you knowing about it. So.
That is such an important point. I can't tell you how many times I've talked to small, medium businesses And their answer is, well, we really know what we're doing because we are backing up, and we're backing up off-prem, so thereby we're secure. So I'm glad you were able to really explain why that's not enough. And certainly when it comes to ransomware, we also have to think about the low and slow, kind of tapping into it a little slowly, see what happens. Let's live on the networks, let's live there, and just explode when we're ready. How would you say that a company could really protect itself when we're talking about ransomware attacks, when they're worried about this low and slow type of attack?
Yeah, so great question. We've seen, to your point, we've seen ransomware organizations sit resident on networks for months at a time, right, before actually attacking. So, or being allowed rather. So this is the kind of this is absolutely the reason why you need a great AV, anti-malware protection, right? You need proper logging, and of course the backup solutions that you've just mentioned. So it's more about covering all of your bases versus just taking the one route versus the other.
Exactly. So. A multi-pronged approach is always important, and certainly we're going to jump into that when we talk about Webroot and Carbonite, now part of OpenText. So how are all three planning to integrate, well, let's call it Webroot and Carbonite, integrate cyber resilience solutions into OpenText suite of solutions?
So,
or offerings, as they say.
Love this question. So harking back to my role and my group's role in the organization, we do a lot of data collection around the way that software looks and behaves. So of course we, as Webroot Carbonite organization, have insight into the sort of software behavior that we see on customer machines, right? We like to know what good looks like and what bad looks like.
Is that easy to identify?
It's not. No, and we'll talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I'd like to get into that a little bit because that's what people want to know, and I know that you guys do a really good job about it. So if we can jump into that in a minute. Yes.
Yeah. So anyway, as being part of a larger OpenText organization, OpenText has a huge suite of projects and products, right?
Altogether.
So we have products such as InCase, that work with a lot of law enforcement agencies. I, as a sort of data hoarder, I want to get my hands on all of this software behavior. This just gives us a world of information that while our universe of software was pretty large, universe of software behavior, it's only going to grow.
Can you give an example of that software behavior for our listeners?
Yeah, so you open Notepad, right? There's a lot that happens behind the scenes, as I'm sure you can imagine. So, if you open up any sort of software monitoring tool, you're going to see numerous API calls. Event tracing for Windows is going to dump a ton of data. You can sort of see the behind the scenes, how things operate, the way registry keys are written, files that are, read and modified. So my group is responsible for what we call the behavior engine. This is a project that observes the behavior of software. And the way that we do this is we tap into, some of these methods for accessing files, reading registry keys, to name a few. We have several thousand. And when we compile all of these sort of events, we can observe this as sort of a higher level behavior, right? So
behavior profiling in a sense.
So behavior profiling, right? So what this might look like is processes that create a process, right? It happens all the time in Windows. So you have your Explorer shell, right? This is your start menu. You click start, and then you open up a process from there. In this case, Notepad. So just creating a process is not inherently bad. We need to look at the events that occur around that process creation to know that this is probably a bad behavior. And this is what we want to tap into and sort of respond to, right? So when we take something like process hollowing, which is, a methodology for, sort of subvertly moving code around the system and sort of hiding bad behavior in known good processes, like Notepad.
Would we be talking about insider threats here as well? from organizations? Could that also be used for that?
So insider, yes, absolutely. Yeah. So sorry to go way off the rails.
No, it's just one of those things that people are so interested in. And please continue your line of thought. But I just wanted to touch upon that human factors of the insider threat as well when we talk about human behaviors.
Yeah.
Because to mark those, that's been a big problem with many organizations.
Yep.
So please continue from there. But
no,
that was an interesting
absolutely.
piece I just want you to touch on as well.
This is a great point.
Yeah.
Like I'm sort of at level 100 talking about the creation of a process and then the injecting of code into that process or injecting your malware into that process, right? But when we sort of abstract these into higher level behaviors, we can observe or, we can kind of take a different perspective, look at a different context. So user accounts, for example, rather than the process layer, we can look at users creating user accounts or changing passwords or whatever. And we can observe anomalous behavior in this regard as well. So to your point, the insider threat can also be captured from this sort of behavioral profiling.
So I will give kudos over here on this point because I talk massively amount about cyber hygiene within the organization and also talking about cyber resilience when you deal with the human factors piece, when it does deal with insider threats. And the fact that you're able to do it from both angles is huge. I think that's very much needed. So just wanted to highlight that on a plus side from what you do. So leading from that, I'd like to talk about your annual threat report. But before you answer that question, many organizations are releasing threat reports. What maybe 2 differentiators can you just highlight about your threat report that's different from everyone else's out there?
Yeah. So traditionally threat reports are big numbers, right?
Correct.
There's, large number here or small number. We detected a lot of things and we only allowed this many attacks, right? So we try to take a different perspective. So again, it's kind of plugging my group here. My group.
Should.
Yeah, absolutely. So my group is responsible for a project that we call the threat analysis pipeline. This kind of takes every sort of what we call artifact from across the organization. These are files, URLs, IP addresses, of course. Essentially anything that could be malicious, we funnel right through this pipeline. And we have threat research organizations across the company inserting their code into our pipeline to sort of crowdsource threat detection, right? And from this, we're able to harvest like very unique information that we've thrown into the threat report here. So. So very powerful. We can deep dive into some of the actual analytics that we found with some of
Please give us one example. I know you like numbers.
So with the Rebel organization that I mentioned earlier, I spent a lot of time this past year researching this organization. So Rebel is without a doubt the most prolific ransomware organization at this point. From this threat analysis pipeline, we're able to identify affiliates, campaign numbers, as well as, in some cases, organizations and the expected payout from those organizations. We've actually been able to identify organizations that have paid as well. Just kind of interesting from a threat research insight, like how much money are these attackers making, and where or how successful do we really think they are, I guess. So anyway.
So how would you talk to the point of, recent kind of trend when dealing with ransomware attacks would not to be to threaten the organization, but to threaten specific individuals within the organization about leaking maybe personal data unless they do what they're told? Is there something that, can be helpful here to our listeners?
So good point.
Because we're talking, it's getting personal here.
So with this particular Rebel organization, we've actually seen these attackers threaten to leak the organization data. Right? We've not seen this so much on a personal level, but
I'm saying if you haven't seen it, but that comes up. Somebody comes, instead of the organization, they tap into a couple people. I wouldn't call it phishing, but that kind of idea. We're gonna find this person, maybe even spear phishing that person, not with the phishing capability, but almost we're targeting somebody. You need to give us this information, or else we're gonna go after you personally.
Yeah. So
that's a worrisome part for people in organizations. How do you protect your employees? How do you protect organizations from their employees of just acting before thinking?
So I think that this is more of a access management sort of issue, right? So from that perspective, I'd absolutely compartmentalize information, right? So employees that don't need access should not be given access. And of course,
Zero trust?
Zero trust. Zero trust. Good plug. Yeah. So, and with, of course, a security solution that profiles this sort of behavior, we're all good from there, hopefully. So, that said, we've not seen, like I said, we've not seen high profile individuals targeted in terms of ransom, right? We've not seen high profile individuals extorted, but that's not to say that it doesn't happen.
But do you think that would actually be a trend because it would actually be something that would happen?
Oh, yeah.
And in general, as we all know, probably one of the biggest problems of security are people acting without thinking and acting fast.
Oh, yeah.
And when it comes to something personal, people just jump if it's pertains to them.
Mm-hmm.
So what kind of maybe examples or helpful hints that you can give organizations besides what you're saying, maybe anything they could institute within their organizations? We talk about zero trust, we talk about all the other pieces of it, but you obviously solve a greater problem. How do we actually tie it down to that, maybe that human nature of dealing with ransomware and the threats that we're dealing with today?
So you're absolutely right. People, the human nature is to sort of, exist sort of paranoid, right? So a lot of, so we've actually seen extortion attempts, right? Just kind of emailed en masse, right? To just email lists saying, hey, we've observed or we've caught you doing something online, right?
Exactly.
And people are inclined to pay this out
or to click,
some
click
folks,
a link.
yeah, or to
download
click a
something.
link, right?
Yeah.
But we've seen actual threat actors collect, 75 Bitcoin in one account, right, from this sort of email campaign, which is absolutely mind-boggling to me, right? It's crazy to me that, A, that people don't understand that, of course this is fake, right? But B, that people are so inclined to just pay out of pocket to somebody that they don't know without any sort of evidence of whatever they've done online, right? So
maybe those people have something to hide.
They probably
they don't want to have it uncovered.
Yeah, you could expect that, yeah. So,
well, actually, let's kind of move on from a different topic, and I really want to hear about your Horizon 3 team at Webroot. Like, who are you guys? What do you do? Or guys and gals, what do you do?
So we're a team based in Broomfield right now. We're looking at growing to the San Diego office as well. So we, sort of like I mentioned earlier, do a lot of efficacy-related projects, right? So we're primarily geared towards getting the agent better detecting malware, right?
Okay.
We're a team of engineers and reverse engineers. So we do deep dives on malware analysis, understand how that works. And, part of the fun is observing the bad guy, chasing the bad guy, right? So, this is kind of where the sort of Revel research comes in from my perspective. But
so one hand talks to the other here. It's important.
Yeah, exactly.
We could jump in and call it digital transformation within the organization, right? Buzzword. But it really is. You really are doing it. So that's important.
So we have come up with some really cool stuff, I think. So over the past 2 to 3 years, we've got 7 patents submitted. We've, I think, dramatically increased the product efficacy, but we've also hugely grown our internal threat intelligence, right? So when you think about Webroot and Carbonite and our suite of products, product, right?
But it's all one and the same. You're good. You're good. Keep going.
So when you think about our products, there's a lot of different facets of information, right? We've got BrightCloud threat intelligence. It's looking at URLs, IPs, preventing people from going to phishing locations, right? We've got WSA, of course, Webroot Secure Anywhere, stopping malware local on the machine. So a lot of these sort of products, siphon a lot of information for better detection on the back end, right? And they kind of have their mothership that they ship this data to. So my team, and this is sort of plugging the threat analysis pipeline, is developing a project that allows all of these sort of motherships to send their data through a single location, and we can mine that data for interesting threat intel. So if BrightCloud sees actor A doing something, right? And Webroot Secure Anywhere sees actor A doing something on the system with a file, right? We can sort of correlate these two, perhaps in different times, different organizations, geolocation sort of thing. So just getting a better context around the sort of detections that we're seeing across the organization.
Well, you touched upon something very important, the sharing of information within organizations.
Yes.
A number of years ago that didn't work. Every organization said, this is mine.
Yep.
You figured it out on your own. But we see the proliferation of everybody sharing with each other.
Yep.
And everyone's becoming stronger because of it. Obviously not sharing specifically their technologies, but the sharing of intel, which has been really powerful. So I'm really happy to hear your organization is doing that as well.
Yep. It's not an easy task, right?
Of course not. You have to know what to share, what you can and can't share, obviously, because everybody needs their own kings to their kingdom.
Yep.
But certainly important. And you wanted to mention your ransomware update at the conference that you're doing?
Yeah, so we're at booth South 635. Thank you. So we're at booth South 635.
Yeah.
I'll be presenting at 11:30 on Wednesday.
Great.
You can come and see some of the actual Rebel analytics that I just discussed here a few moments ago.
Sure.
And we'll actually do a little bit more of a deep dive on the threat analysis pipeline. So come check us out. We'll cover some of the actual findings, the affiliate findings, the campaign findings, and cover some of the cool stuff that we've uncovered. So,
and I'm sure you could also focus people on grabbing your threat report as well when
yes,
you come by.
Absolutely. Come grab the threat report for
Excellent.
sure.
Well, thank you so much for your time.
Yep.
Everyone, please go visit Eric on Wednesday, and we look forward to hearing more from you.
All right. Thank you,
Thank
Shira.
you.